Hey everybody, and welcome to the last of our 3 video lectures on networking messages. In this video lecture, we'll discuss how you can effectively craft a particular type of networking message, the recommendation request. But before we dive into tips and techniques for how to request a letter of recommendation, let's first discuss a more fundamental point. The fundamental point is this. It's the idea that good recommendations begin with good relationships. And so if you want somebody to write a good letter of recommendation on your behalf, you've got to establish strong professional relationships. And at this point in your career, those professional relationships, the folks who are most likely to be able to effectively recommend you, are likely to be either professors or workplace supervisors. To establish positive relationships with professors so that they can write strong letters of recommendation on your behalf, yes, of course, you want to seek to do well in your classes, but just as importantly, perhaps even more importantly, you want to visit office hours early and often, and you want to stay in touch with your professors after your course with them is done. You want to establish strong personal relationships with your professors so that they can speak convincingly and credibly about who you are, why you're a great candidate, and how this particular opportunity or role connects to your larger long-term ambitions. I know for me personally, the students who I've been able to recommend most enthusiastically are the folks who not only got to know me and allowed me to know them during office hours, but who also kept me updated regularly, whether it's by LinkedIn or Twitter or email, on the comings and goings in their career. For your supervisors, you want to do something similar if you'd like them to one day write a strong recommendation for you. Yes, of course, you want to be good at your job and try to make a good impression, but you also want to establish a personal connection with your supervisor. As with your professor, you want them to know you on a personal level so that they can speak to you and your skill set comprehensively, not just as a worker, but as a person as well. Now, once you've established those strong relationships and once you're ready to request a letter, you want to follow a series of tips. First, and most obviously, you want to follow the guidelines from our previous video lectures on networking messages in your recommendation request. A recommendation request is, after all, a type of networking message. It's a networking message almost exclusively to a known audience. And as a result, all of those tips, techniques, and best practices that we've discussed for networking messages apply to recommendation requests. You also want to request the letter 4 or more weeks in advance of your deadline. You want to request your letter far in advance of your deadline, not just because good letters of recommendation take time to craft and the people writing them are often busy, but also because occasionally you will get turned down. And if you do get turned down for a recommendation request, you want to leave yourself time to find somebody else to write on your behalf. Next, when requesting a letter, you want to briefly explain why you're a good fit for the position or opportunity that you're applying for. You want to take that persuasive case that you're making in your cover letter and you want to distill it down to a few short sentences so that you can provide your reader with a framework that they can then elaborate on in their own letter of recommendation. In other words, you want to provide your recommender with a mini model for how they can effectively advocate on your behalf. You also want to attach a resume to your recommendation request. You want to provide your recommender with a concise compendium of your experiences and skills. And lastly, and most importantly, you want to keep your recommendation request short. A lot of students feel like requesting a letter of recommendation is this huge thing. And as a result, they feel the need to write very lengthy letters of request to match what they see as the significance or the gravity of the request. I understand where that impulse comes from, and I think it's a really positive and respectful impulse. But you should rest assured that a recommendation request is not really that big of a deal, particularly if you're requesting a letter of recommendation from a faculty member. Writing letters of recommendation is part of our job, right? It's something that we are paid to do. It's an expected component of our profession. And not just that, it's actually a really nice opportunity. It's one of the more positive things that we get to do in an already awesome job, right? We get to sing praises about students, and we get to help students achieve some of their goals and ambitions, right? So all of this is to say that when you're requesting a letter of recommendation, don't feel like you need to justify that request with a novel. Keep your message respectful and action-oriented, of course, but you can also keep it short. And to illustrate not only the appropriate length of a recommendation request, but also the kinds of things that you should include in a recommendation request, let's take a look at a good model. So here in this model, we have an action-oriented subject line, letter of recommendation for job at Citrix. It's clearly framed as a question. It's indicating the action that we want our potential recommender to take. And then we move into the body of the message itself. Dr. Trainer, thanks again for helping me improve my resume last year. Your advice helped me land the Citrix rotational internship, which was an incredibly positive experience. As I approach graduation this spring, I'm looking to apply for a full-time position at Citrix as a data analyst. I'm confident I'll be a strong candidate for this job. I thrived in the data analytics unit during my rotational internship. I've got a strong quant background because of my double major in stats. And thanks to your class, I've got the communication skills to translate quantitative information into plain language for our clients. Would you be willing to write me a letter of recommendation for this position? The letter is due by the 23rd of October, 2019. If you agree to write on my behalf, you can submit the letter to recommendations@citrix.com. To help you craft the letter, I've also attached an updated resume. Thank you for considering my request. I hope you're having a great semester. Sincerely, Business Writer. Okay, so let's break this message down and think about what Business Writer is doing in different parts of the message. So in that introductory paragraph, Business Writer is establishing common ground, showing gratitude, reminding the reader, in this case me, of their personal connection. In that second paragraph, we've got a brief persuasive case for why Business Writer would be such a good fit for this opportunity. In other words, business is providing me with a framework that I can use to advocate on their behalf in a letter of recommendation. Then in that third paragraph, we have the action item, the specific request for a letter of recommendation, and we're highlighting that using optional formatting. We have the due date for the letter of recommendation. We have the means by which the letter should be submitted, in this case via email. And then finally, Business Writer directs my attention to their resume in the hopes that this resume can help me craft a comprehensive letter of recommendation. And then at the very end of the message, we just have some nice goodwill to end on a positive and polite note. And that's how you do it. A recommendation request does not have to be this daunting, complicated task, it is indeed a manageable task, and it's quite similar to other kinds of networking messages. So with that, we arrive at the end of our 3 video lectures on networking messages. Thank you for tuning in to all of these video lectures, and thank you in particular for persisting to the end of this, our 3rd.